never seen him sign them. I assumed he always did.
They don't let me walk through the business office without you.
Good evening and welcome to the June 27th, 2019 edition of the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order to start, call the meeting to order at 6:37 p.m. The first item on the agenda would be to approve the minutes from the June 13th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments? Joe?
Page 2, item 6, summer school committee meeting schedule.
Joe, I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just a question about this sentence. The meeting schedule for August 8th will be a workshop, and the other meetings will be held at the usual 6:30 p.m. time at the library. My understanding was the August 8th meeting would be 6:30 as well. If it seems from here that I was incorrect, what would be the August 8th meeting time?
It's just the workshop?
Yeah, and
Versus
the
a
other
regular
meetings will be held,
business.
so it suggests that there's a
Yeah.
different meeting time for August 8th.
Oh.
So all meetings will be held at 6:30?
All meetings will be held at 6:30.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make the change.
Yeah, other to all, and
Okay.
I'm happy.
Okay, as long as you're happy. Any other questions or comments on the minutes? We had a motion, we had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up would be public comment. Seeing a lot of enthusiasm, but no public comment. We'll move on to recognitions.
I have none tonight, Madam Chair.
Every minute matters, Dr. Carpenter, thank you so much. We're gonna move on to reports and discussions, starting with the CPAC presentation.
Melissa really wants to do her presentation.
Good evening. My name is Melissa McGuire. I'm the Director of Student Services. I have 3 reports to give tonight, so I'm going to stay up here for 3 minutes and give them. The first one is our Special Education Parent Advisory Council, although I did forget an A in that, and that's why I wanted to be so quick. So really what I wanted to stress tonight is there is a requirement under state law that each school district does in fact have a Special Education Parent Advisory Council, and that we have one that has been in the works for the past couple of years, so I kind of wanted to share where we are at with our CPAC. What the law requires is that the Advisory Council basically advises on special education programs as part of the evaluation and assessment process, and provides input to special education programs. We currently have 3 wonderful ladies who have stepped up and volunteered to be part of the CPAC board. Laura Kent, Heidi Fozier, and Katie Martinez. We actually do have an email address for our CPAC. So these ladies are getting kind of up and ready and prepared to take on these leadership roles for our CPAC. But just want to make sure the community is aware that this is open to all parents. So any meetings, any activities, any information that they would like to have is available to all of our parents. So the activities that we have engaged in this year with a new board, we did send out a parent survey and asking them about their input regarding special education services. We held parent meetings twice this year, January 15th and 22nd, as an open forum to talk about what parents' needs were, what their concerns were, what they'd like to see the PAC be able to do as part of our school. We met as a board. I met with the board to discuss the roles and responsibilities. We reviewed the bylaws and talked about how we will be moving forward. We also are a member of the MassPAC, which provides information across the state. And we're currently scheduling a training, a parent rights training, that will happen over the summer, which is one of our requirements. And then moving forward, what we really want to make sure we're doing is strengthening our partnership with families, the CPAC and the district. We'd love to engage more families in CPAC. I don't know why I keep spelling it incorrectly, but there is an A that goes after the P. And then we want to certainly develop and strengthen the activities that we can offer our families. So that is my report on our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Any questions?
Tina?
Yeah, just for clarification, so it's you just had 2 meetings, is that, group meetings? Is that what I'm understanding?
They were not meetings, they were open forums for parents.
Okay.
We invited parents to come, kind of for a coffee hour. And we
Okay.
held them both in Harwich and Chatham for the convenience of families to be able to come. And we had about 10 families each meeting that came and participated and had a conversation. I was at both meetings, and then I left the meeting because I wanted the parents to be able to have an opportunity to speak with the new board members if there were things that were important to them that they felt more comfortable, perhaps if I was not present. So I afforded them that opportunity.
Okay, so there's not monthly meetings?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Nancy?
Can you just clarify, I think, that this is not something you organize
No.
and you lead. This is something that parents have to, or community members, right? Or does it just have to be parents?
Parents.
So parents have to create and take the lead on this, not you.
I don't take the lead, but I'm required to support
Right.
and help foster and develop.
I just want for clarification for the public.
Absolutely, it is the parents. In the past 3 years, it's been very low attended. We've had some parents that want to be involved, but with time constraints have a difficult time taking on the roles. So when 3 parents stepped up, I said, great, all 3, please, that would be wonderful if you could lead the charge with our CPAC.
Thank you.
Sharon?
I would be interested in attending the Parent Rights thing. When is that scheduled for?
The parents' training,
What's the thing that's happening in the summer?
we're scheduling, it's Parents' Right for Special Education. It's for parents who have children that are receiving special education services. So it goes over their rights.
Yes. So is it a formal thing, or it just is individualized to each person?
No, it's open to all parents. We put an invitation out as soon as we have the date from the Federation for Children with Special Needs facilitates that training for parents.
I would love to attend.
Great.
There used to be a CPAC when we were in Chatham, and we held it monthly. But I haven't been at all involved for quite a while, so it's just something that is interesting.
So one of the things that came up in the parent survey, which I did send out so that I had information to share with the folks who were taking on the board roles, was, what is it that they would like to see from their PAC? And it wasn't so much that they were looking for monthly meetings. And part of the reason is that they're looking for information specific about their child. And it's really hard when you have a monthly meeting if there's conversations that really aren't relative to your child's needs. So what they really wanted was more resources, information, versus a meeting, or maybe events a couple of times a year that were relevant to a variety of parents, that have different struggles with their children. So they don't plan on having monthly meetings.
Tina?
I just want to thank you for that clarification, because I know at other school districts, they have the monthly meetings, but I like what you just said, so thank you for clarifying.
And then just another part of that too is we've had some other CPAC board members reach out to us in terms of collaborating with opportunities in different districts. So when there's been training, say in DY or NOSIT, I share that information out to parents so that they have opportunities to either receive training or resources in other communities on the Cape, so which is really helpful.
All right, great. Everybody good? All right, we're going to move on to the social emotional learning presentation.
Thank you, Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services.
Thank you, Melissa.
So I'm going to give an overview. The report was lengthy in terms of everything that we are doing as a district, and I believe we are in a position right now that we are in the forefront with social emotional learning in the state. I enjoy saying that. So overview in terms of what social emotional learning is, it's the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. So it's important to, continue to use that language and have that understanding of what social emotional learning is. So I'd like to start with the district strategic plan. And as you know, we have a new strategic plan which has a significant objective that talks about our social emotional well-being. So I just wanted to point that out. And it has two initiatives, one to develop student social emotional learning and character development, and the other to strengthen climate and culture. And everything that you will see on your slides will indicate which initiative that it correlates to. So the first piece that we want to talk about is the district has now subscribed to the 5 core competencies. This has been put out by CASEL. So we want to use these 5 core competencies in our development of common language and the skill sets that we're expecting students to have. One of the things that we took on is developing a student survey to address social emotional learning and where they believe they're at with these skills. And the survey asks 44 questions. We provide the survey from grades 3 to grades 12. And each of those color codes signifies one of those 5 core competencies. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of those, but it's just for illustration. And the responses to those questions are it's very easy, hard, or very hard, or they're unsure of where they are with that skill. So we partnered with Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to look at to take those data and provide some meaningful responses back. And what we were able to get is a really nice map of each student and where they believed they fell with those skills. So it's a 4 quadrant, and really what you're looking at is in the lower right is these are skills that they're working to develop, meaning that they said that those skills were really hard. Okay, so it wasn't a weakness and it wasn't something that we could say, you don't have this skill, but they're working to have these, and they thought it was really hard for them. Versus up in the far left corner, which are opportunities, these are strengths that we can really work with students on developing those skills because if they said they were easy or very easy. So the whole left side are strengths and opportunities for them to further develop skills. The far right, top right corner, new skills to develop. What's really nice, I can tell you, we printed out 1,100 maps for students. There was only one student that had one answer in that quadrant. And that's a quadrant where there were no skills that we could really identify, or they could identify that they had in that area. So there was only one out of 1,100. So I think that's a good news story. So our hope is to, as we move forward, is to use this for a variety of ways to support students. One is we're going to focus on our relationship skills, but if we have a student who is struggling, we can take this map and see where they were feeling at the time they took the survey. Where are they struggling, and how can we help them develop some goals and strategies to develop those and make it more easy? One of the groups that we belong to is the Excel Network. It's Excellence Through Social Emotional Learning. We're going to be going into our 3rd year with this group. Myself, I have to say it's been an absolutely amazing experience. We have an awesome team, as you can see. Going into our 3rd year, we have another new teacher who will be joining us next year. But this group is run by Transforming Education in the Rennie Center, who are just amazing what they do educationally, and have provided great professional development for us and a system for us to develop an integration plan of how do we integrate social emotional learning across our classrooms, across our schools, across the district. So we'll continue our partnership with them. This year, which is really important, is we spent the whole year really talking about agency. And what does that look like? How do we make sure we have student voice in everything that we're doing, in their learning, and how we're teaching? So we spent a lot of time looking at student voice and that agency. And I just wanted to share the content of our sessions this year. There were 4 sessions and then a statewide conference that we all attended at the end in May. We also presented at this conference. We looked at empowering students, we looked at the community, we looked at mindsets, and we looked at mindful regulation. So it was a really nice way to integrate all of those pieces in focusing on the student and their voice. We also have a behavioral health committee that started this year. Well, we had, 2 years ago, we started a social emotional learning steering committee. And as a result of a tool that we completed in the district, the Behavioral Health in Public Schools tool, which was a survey, what came out of that is really morphing it into a behavioral health committee, because we see social emotional learning falling under that umbrella as well. And as you can see, we have a robust group of folks that are on this committee. And I'm obviously not going to read all of this, but this is the result of the tool I was talking about. So we took that survey and we looked at what are the important things that came out of that survey that staff responded to, saying, we're not sure about this. This is something that we need more of. And we created some goal areas or action step areas in the 6 standards that the state has set for behavioral health. So this is our action plan, which is in your packet, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But as you can see that in terms of the timelines, and we have just submitted to the state our progress report on this. So we've pretty much accomplished everything, and with continuing moving forward with a lot of these action steps. So we met pretty much every month this year, and we had an agenda. And we had lots of great discussions, because one of the things that we wanted to think about was, how do we rethink discipline? What does that look like? And how do we think about potentially moving forward to more restorative practices, and how that might look like, what that might look like in our district? And through a grant, we were able to get consultation through Transforming Education, Richard Fournier with Transforming Education, who also is part of the Excel network in professional development, met with us for about 5 sessions and provided us PD, provided us feedback, and at the end he created, with our input, an amazing toolkit for for teachers and for our educators and for our administrators that we spent time unpacking this week in our administrative retreat. So we're looking forward to sharing that out with our educators. Another partner that we engaged with this year was Engaging Schools, and that was that whole piece about rethinking discipline. They're one of the experts in this area of restorative practices, or you might have heard a term called restorative justice in the past. But restorative practices, I think, makes it certainly more palatable than restorative justice. So we had an opportunity through a grant that we didn't get, but DESE recognized the work that we were doing and invited us to participate in these 4 conferences that were being held. And so there was a team of 3 of us that attended each of these conferences. And then there was a Safe and Supportive Environment statewide conference in March that we also presented at, based on the work we were doing. So that was another nice partnership. So some of the highlights, and again, this addresses really both of our initiatives, and I'm not going to read all of them, but we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot of really, really good work, and we're consistently doing a lot of these activities across the district, the building, and the classroom. And I think that, in terms of, you've heard from the principals, so I don't need to keep giving those big shout outs to the principals, but they're continually integrating social emotional learning throughout their buildings and throughout the classrooms, and they're making that a priority as well in their school improvement plans.
Here we go.
We have the microphone thing though. So the next thing I wanted to share with you is our community partners, because I think that's really important too. We have a partnership with Harwich Youth and Family Services. Of course, they support students within the Harwich district. We work with the district attorney's office with a program called Keep Them Coming. What it is really, and I know it sounds scary when you talk about the district attorney, but really what it is to support families that are struggling to get their children to school. How can they help? How can we help? How can we connect them with the resources? So it's a wonderful thing, and it's helped a lot of families connect with resources they might not have known about otherwise. We also continue our partnership with Gosnold. We are pretty much at capacity with our Gosnold counselors in every building, pretty much almost every day in all of the buildings. And the other community partner is the Family Resource Center. This is a place where I tell anyone, if you have a question about anything, they can get you the answer. If you're having difficulty with your fuel, with grocery shopping, with clothes for your children, with housing, anything that you're struggling with, this is the place to go. They're amazing, and they're incredibly responsive and diligent in making sure they can support their families. We also are representatives on several community committees. The Cape and Island Suicide Prevention Coalition, Monomoy, serves on the board for this group. For the Housing Assistance Council, we also participate in bi-monthly meetings, and that's really to look at our families who are struggling with housing and who also need resources, and it might not just be housing, but it might be just to heat their house. So we meet bi-monthly and have great resources and access to information and support for families. We're also now appointed as part of the Barnstable County Human Services, which is, as if you're aware of them, a much larger organization for the Cape and Islands. But what we're trying to do across the Cape and Islands is to make sure that we're really pulling together all the resources, because there are pockets across the Cape and Islands, and what we are concerned about is, because there are so many pockets and the information might not always get down to Lower Cape or to Upper Cape, that we want to make sure that we're involved in that information sharing, and that we can, especially where we also have students that are school choice and are across a variety of our towns. So that's a nice committee to serve on, so that we can get more information and resources available. And then the other membership that we participate in is the Behavioral Health Provider Coalition at the Cape Cod Hospital. That's where anybody in mental health, behavioral health, medical health comes together and talks about all of the different services that are needed on the Cape. What I liked about going to this particular committee is they oftentimes talk about students. And one of the groups that was not represented at that group until I went was schools. And so my thought to them was, if you're talking about kids, you need to have schools here with you talking about kids. So this was really a great opportunity to connect. So now, as part of the collaborative, what we did is they offered for us to have 2 seats on this committee. So I feel that these committees are a wonderful resource for our families and students. So our next steps, we certainly want to continue our participation in the Excel network. We want to continue a plan for social emotional learning integration across the district. We want to continue to develop strategies, supports, and services to address social emotional learning. We want to continue to develop and strengthen community partnerships. And we want to continue to collaborate with Sheila Peoples from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed to really look at our data collection, refine our procedures, and make sure that we continue in a way that becomes really reliable and valid for our students in measuring their social emotional skills. So the last thing I want to show you is part of this week in our administrative retreat, and part of what we really want to focus on is, how do we strengthen and build our relationships with students? And so I want to show you a clip. I'm sorry, it's 7 minutes, but then I'm done. Because it's a very powerful clip. And this is what we really want to strive for. It's like 5 minutes.
Jim's in the hallway. Push the volume button all the way on the left. Oh, hey, there she is.
I know.
scroll it back because Jim's here.
That's okay.
You may not leave.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reforms from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it. They should learn it. Case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is going to be long and arduous here. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologize. You ever thought about that? Tell the kids you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. They said, that's okay, Miss Pearson, you were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave them a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yeah. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, minus 18 For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on this, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educated. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
So I will end with that. And are there any questions?
It's hard to ask any question after that, because that's very inspiring. All of this is very inspiring. I have two questions. One is on our curriculum that we're doing. It's K through 2.
Pre-K
Pre-K.
through 3, actually, because the third grade teachers requested second step as well. And then grades 3 through 12 is Botman life skills.
And have those started in all the grades?
Absolutely.
And how often does that happen?
Well, so they're integrating those lessons continually throughout the week, but they're, for each grade level, there aren't a daily lesson. So what they're doing is taking those lessons, they're incorporating those throughout the week, so they're happening quite frequently.
Okay. And the other question was, on this chart that you gave us about the kids and their views of how they're doing on the skills, is there anything like that that's given to the teachers or the parents to say how they see the kids' skills? I mean, I love it when kids feel so good about themselves, but sometimes a kid will say, I'm fabulous at something, and it's wonderful they feel fabulous, but no one else sees that skill being developed. Is there any kind of something that...
Well, it's the work we're doing and moving forward, and part of the strategic plan is looking at how we're measuring student success with their
Yes.
social emotional
Yes.
learning, looking
Yes.
at those 5 core competencies and those skill sets under those competencies,
Yes.
and begin to assess where they are in terms of being observed, demonstrating those skills as well. This was a really unique opportunity with this particular survey that we developed and implemented. It's no one other than Washoe County, which is not near us, who's doing it. We're one of the
I think
first in
this
the
is so
state.
fabulous, really fabulous. I'll be interested in how all that works out. Thanks.
Joe?
I'm struck that the goal here is we will have students, we'll have children becoming adults who live better in the world because they'll
Yes.
have a better understanding of how to negotiate the conflicts and problems in the world. This is this is like having a therapist as sitting next to you all the time, or just being on hand. I'm thinking of your opening sentence and definition. The importance of that, I believe, can be understood by the lack of it. What happens when this doesn't exist? And the answer to that is can be found on the front page of the Chronicle this week, in the implications of town government when you don't have people behaving in a way that is consistent with social, emotional learning. Things blow up, committees are in crisis, etc. And this, I'm not talking about gossip, it's literally front page news. Students who graduate from Monomoy, if they acquire this, will be a lot better than many of us adults today. Now, my question, if we could afford 2 Melissa McGuires, what else would you do here? What else would be here? I'm not going to fool around with budget or open it up that way.
It's not in the budget.
But just, I mean, if you can,
have 3 of me.
if you could just sort of fantasize with me a little bit. If there were 2 Melissa McGuires, what might we have here?
I think it's it's a large question because there's so much that goes into student services that there's many hats. It's not just special education. It's not just social emotional learning. It's a whole host of things that, within our district and our makeup is, we have to be able to function with all the requirements and that are put upon us. So, I mean, I think all of us could say that we could certainly, put some other things off on someone else to do a job, and I don't, want to say that more people could do it better, but, certainly the amount of tasks that we all have before us can be daunting. So, I think that was a roundabout way of answering your question.
Yes, thank you.
I do just want to stress, as you said, that it's not just about the social emotional learning. If you look at the research, what it's really telling you is that if students have these skills, and you provide social emotional learning experiences across your classrooms, that you're going to see a 13% academic achievement gain. That's the research. Over 200,000 students, in terms of this research, showed that there was a 13% academic achievement gain. That's what we're striving for, is for our kids to succeed both academically, socially, and emotionally. So this is not separate of or mutually exclusive from our want for students to be successful academically.
Oh, Mary?
I just have one question, and excuse me if you've already talked about this before, but I'm just wondering, with the curriculum, the second step, and the BOTFIN life skills,
Yes.
what does the training look like for the teachers and the support to implement that?
Sure. So for the second step, what we did is we spent time with the teachers at Harwich Elementary during a professional, it was the first day of school, we unpacked it. We spent some time modeling it. We went through the lessons. They were able to actually go in and, because now it's become a computerized system where they can pull out lessons, materials, songs. There's actually videos of teachers doing the lessons themselves, that if you want to have the video of the teacher doing the lesson, you as the teacher could be with the kids engaging in the activities. So there's lots of ways in which the teachers use the activities, the cards, there's so much engaging activities with that. So we spent time unpacking it so teachers were familiar and comfortable with using it. The BOTFIN life skills, we sent 5 teachers to New York to be trainers of teachers. So they're implementing that at the different grade levels, but the goal is to begin to shift it to the teachers. Each grade level has between 5 and 8 lessons for the year. So that will be the goal at some point, is for those trainers of teachers to, help the teachers begin to implement that curriculum.
Great, thank you.
We also have a parent training as well that we provide, a 7 session anti-addiction training for parents.
Great. Very good. All right, great. Thank you so much. Dare I ask, are you staying up for the Wellness Committee?
That will be me.
Okay.
Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. I would like to present this year our outcome for our Wellness Committee. So first, just understanding that it is part of our regulations that we do have a district wellness committee, and part of their charge is to develop or propose district wellness policy, develop goals, and review and assess the implementation of the policy. As you can see, again, we have an incredibly robust membership for our wellness committee. All of our committees have included community members, parents, teachers, administrators, nurses. I can go on, but it's been really nice to see over the past few years that I've been doing it, the increase in the membership and folks wanting to be part of this. We met 4 times, I should actually say 3 times. One of the January time, 2 of us showed up, so we kind of had to move on, but I put the date up there anyways. So one of the things in the past that we've done is each year we've had goals for the Wellness Committee. This year, meeting with the Wellness Committee, we wanted to be really thoughtful about what that looks like, and we thought that it would make more sense to have a 2-year process. So in the first year, really spend some time to develop the goals, and in the second year, implement them. So that's what we decided this year, and I'll share those goals with you in a moment. And then what we use for our resources, our district wellness policy. And as we go through the policy, we do exercises, and what's really important. We pull out pieces and say, what's important for us to make sure that we're working on. So that's one of the resources. We use the Alliance for Healthier Generation framework. That's also a really nice resource because it also provides you an assessment tool. So so each of our schools are actually registered here, so we can go in our assessment year and really look at how are we doing based on those standards. And of course, we use the A list, which everyone hopefully knows that. That's the list of all the foods that have been approved under this wellness policy, and that we should be going to for things that we have within our schools. And of course, finally, the United States Department of Agriculture. So for our goals, we looked at our school meals, and one of the things that we wanted to do is think about how can we have opportunities to increase choices of fruits for students. And so we thought that was important, and how we're going to do that is looking at how can we develop, similar to other types of incentive programs that we have. It certainly could fall within the PBIS structure, positive behavioral intervention and support structure at the elementary schools, but really educating kids on the importance of that and trying to increase their selection of fruit. The other goal we looked at is our nutrition, education, and promotion. So and actually Holly Tavano's here tonight, who did a wonderful job at one of our meetings in presenting an educational program through SNAP, and that provides 2 after-school programs and 2 summer school programs. So, and then the middle and high school food services program will also work to develop opportunities for nutritional promotion and education and incentive programs. Communication with parents, and this also falls, and I didn't actually put the initiatives or goals that tie into the strategic plan on this particular report. But one of the things we thought was important is having opportunities for parents and children to engage in some physical activities. So we're looking at having an opportunity for family fun fit nights at the schools at least 3 times annually. We're talking about what that might look like for families, but to be able to come together and engage in some physical activity and some educational opportunities to understand nutrition better. And that's my wellness report.
He's handsome. Any
like the veggie
questions from? Seeing none. Thank you very much. We are going to move forward with the Harwich Elementary School 2019-2020 handbook final draft.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Hughes, Assistant Principal at Harwich Elementary School. This evening, I will be going over the revisions to the handbook for the 2019-2020 year, and I will try to be as brief as possible. There aren't too many, just about a page and a half here. All these changes will correlate with the yellow highlighted changes in the printed handbook that you all should have, and we can just go page by page according to this. Also, these changes were made by myself and Principal Mary Oldak and Holly Tavano with the Health Services team so that all of it could be reflected, and of course Melissa McGuire too. So it took many visits and revisits to the document to bring it to this point. So with no further ado, we will begin. The first change is on page 3. There's a preschool dismissal time change, and that change highlights the afternoon dismissal, changing from 2:05 to 2:15 to ensure a full school day for all students. The second change is on page 4, and you guys will see that it is the administrative team introduction. It's a very lengthy page. I'm not going to go through all that, but Principal Oldak and I redesigned this page to reflect our leadership. Previously, it was Sam Hine and Mary Oldak, so we wanted it to reflect our vision and view of the exciting things that are coming up this year. We really want to focus on a positive school climate, the social emotional learning, as well as the 4 strategic plan objectives that are highlighted here. And probably the most exciting thing everyone's looking forward to is the new playground. So that'll definitely be a couple of years in the makings, but we wanted everyone to feel our optimism and energy in that letter. The change after that is on page 5, and that highlights the new school committee members who are here with us tonight. So we have Tina Gaines and Meredith Henderson, so that's in our handbook, of course. Under that, it also highlights Joy Jordan, who is our Monomoy engagement coordinator. And Joy did a nice job writing up a little bit further into the document here what her program is all about, and the Lighthouse mentoring program, which has been a great success at Harwich this year. The next change we have on pages 6 through 9, and it's really just the changes about the new staff, and we have about 13 changes. We have Jackie Cleary going from 3rd grade to 4th. We have Ashley Cook, who was in 2nd grade, going into 3rd. We, on the next page, have Pat Smith, who was in 3rd grade, going down to 2nd grade. We have a TBD EL teacher, and I'm on page 7, everyone. That is to be determined, and Mrs. Oldak and I are interviewing right now for that. Also on page 7, Peter Bertucci came in last October as our new school psychologist, so we wanted to highlight him there. We also have Jennifer Campbell, who's a new special education teacher, who is starting with us in the fall. Now on page 8, we have Wendy Moore, who's a new special education teacher as well, and she'll be in grade 1. Erin Senior, who is currently with Harwich Elementary. She is our new reading interventionist and was a former special education teacher. Just a couple more. Still on page 8, we have Marcus De La Vega. We are so fortunate to have him. He was the Monomoy High School phys ed teacher, and now he's ours at Harwich. And we also are excited to have Liz Hoff, who's also formerly at Monomoy High School. She will be our technology computer science teacher. And the last one, we have William Weimer, and he is our new science teacher, and we are excited to have him. He is from Brooklyn, New York. Very, very exciting changes that will definitely impact student learning and growth. On the next page, page 9, our instructional assistants are highlighted here. Nora Dyer was hired mid-year, and she has been wonderful with working with many special education students. And Stacy Vendetti also has been a wonderful new instructional assistant at Harwich. We have 1 custodial position that is to be determined, and that's it for our changes with staff. Next page on 14, it is highlighting absentee intervention. Like Melissa McGuire had mentioned earlier, the Keep Them Coming partnership, we do need to make sure we notify families if there's flagrant absenteeism, that the failure to send act will be enacted if there is excessive and severe absenteeism, because we need our students at school in order to be learning and be part of all the important things that lead them to state assessments. Another change on this page, page 14, lower down, is the reentry meeting. We added this phrase here because behavior, typically at the beginning or the end of the day, is addressed by both either myself or Mrs. Oldak. And if a student has been suspended or had a medical or other suspension, a reentry meeting is the best way for them to just come right in and be able to reconnect, understand what the expectations are. And sometimes students come to us with a letter of an apology to either a faculty member or a student they might have had an incident with. So it's a really nice way to support our positive behavior support system, as well as conflict resolution and resolve practices. So it ties all that in with the students' awareness and involvement, and almost student-led meetings if they are old enough to do that. Typically our 3rd and 4th grade kids can do very well, and we've seen that happen. So that's been a nice new piece this year that Mrs. Oldak and I like. Further down on the same page, we have the school bus transportation. Formerly, we had the Cape destinations, and now we will be coordinating it through the Monomoy schools. So that will be exciting times for us with the new transportation program. So next page is 15, a little bit more on bus and conduct. I know a lot of you guys have the big colorful page, which again illustrates our respectful and responsible, safe, ready to learn. These are important skills for our students to have on the bus. Mrs. Oldak and I do very thorough bus school trainings, and we do it every year with all bus drivers. Now that we'll have a new bus transportation company, we definitely need to make sure all those new drivers know what the expectations are. So those changes are highlighted in yellow, that if there is an incident, we will make sure the bus driver writes them up on a referral. Those bus incident reports are critical, so we can see what the bus driver witnessed, who was involved, and that brings the information to Mrs. Oldak and I, and then we can follow through clearly with interviewing students and follow up with any changes that need to be made. The other part of this is the signing of the referrals, whether it's the bus incident report or ours. We like to make sure those come back signed, so we know, even though we call parents, sometimes they aren't available, so we like to follow up and make sure they have an area to comment on those referral documents. Moving right along a couple pages further, page 18, we wanted to have more supportive language around challenging behavior. Originally, the handbook had inappropriate behavior, and we just feel like challenging behavior is definitely more supportive for students and understanding all their needs. So there are several changes there where you see that word changed to challenging. Another part that we wanted to highlight too is language changing excluded to separated for a student who might be on a field trip or in any sort of like group activity. We don't want to exclude anyone, and if there is any sort of disruptive behavior, sometimes just having the student remove for a few minutes with their teacher or an instructional assistant usually brings them right back to where they need to be. So that also is important language for us to have in there. In a worst case scenario, if there is an episode that is dangerous to the student or other students, we do have many staff who are trained in SOLVE, and every year we have SOLVE trainings that occur, and SOLVE stands for Strategies of Limiting Violent Episodes. So thank you. That's a lot for the SOLV. Melissa, I know, knows it by heart. So strategies of limiting violent episodes, and that is used in like the worst case scenario if the student, again, is a danger to himself or others. And these techniques are used to help de-escalate the student. It could begin with something as simple as breathing techniques like 5-finger breathing. A lot of the kids use in, out, or just having them focus on something else so they can re-regulate themselves. But we have many strategies and rarely have to get to that point. So the next change is on the second page, everybody, on the revision page, page 20, about food. With food services, we wanted to make sure Holly Tavano Sorry, I need to click there too, thank you. Yep, so on page 20, food services in the very bottom, we, in the past, only had the cafeteria notified about changes with any foods. Of course, Holly, Tabano, or Carol need to know about these changes so that they are aware of anything that is related to allergies. And the next change, page 21, food allergies. We are now an allergy-aware school. That is the PC term, because there are many different things. It's not just nuts. Kids can be allergic to mangoes, apricots, you name it. So allergy-aware is the best term. And we aren't just a nut-free school. Most schools aren't anymore because some students need to be able to have a peanut section that they could be in. And I think Harwich does a wonderful job of making sure that the kids who have nut allergies are separated from the other kids and can still enjoy their peanut butter. Under that, on the same page, 21, trading of any kind is not permitted. We wanted to make sure that was put in there. Children often bring on the bus, I would say it's the most commonplace, little gadgets, toys, magic cards, Pokemon, you name it. It can get traded, lost, stolen, broken, and then it becomes an issue in the office. So we like to make sure none of that comes to school, no trading. Leave those things at home. Right, further down now, we are on page 22, everybody. Almost done. School activities and field trips. Mrs. Oldak and I wanted to make sure people knew that students can, we do have transportation for them, but on a field trip, if anyone is going to be dismissed, we need to make sure that the office and the teacher knows. Those things are allowed, but we have to have advance notice in order to allow that to happen. Can everyone hear me okay? There we go. All right, page 23 is about electronic devices and cell phones. Any use of technology on the school premises or buses is not allowed. We have had students as young as kindergarten with cell phones on them. So that is not okay because they could get lost or stolen, so we really try to reinforce that. But that has been an ongoing issue for us, so no cell phones or technology anywhere. Last change I'm sorry, I just missed the bottom of page 23, Monomoy Lighthouse Leadership Program. I know Joy Jordan, who's here tonight, Joy has talked about this many times, and kudos to everyone who was involved in the Lighthouse program. It has been outstanding. The volunteers were excellent. There was such great relationship building, just like we just saw in that video. That's what it's all about, the relationships that were built between the students and the Lighthouse mentors was incredible. So we were really, really happy with that. And those kids really needed it. And thank you, Joy, for all that you did with that. One other part on page 24 now, the last item I'm going to review before I turn it over to Holly. The 4th grade student ambassadors, Principal Oldak and I worked really hard helping the kids this year build a student council group, but now we've renamed it to be student ambassadors. It's a much more appropriate name, and there are many different monthly themes that we do with the kids that they are proud of, and they do things in the community as well as through the school on kindness, creativity, respect, sportsmanship, just great themes that help them become leaders at Harwich Elementary. So that's it for my changes, unless anyone had any questions. Holly Tabano, our school nurse, is going to go over the changes, which there are several pages, 5 actually. She will not read them all, but is everyone all set with oh, go ahead. Yep, Joseph?
Page 16, first sentence, second word. Just a small change there, please.
Joe, did you say page 16?
Yes.
Yep, and I only brought the pages up that had changes. 16 actually doesn't. Was there something about page 16 that you were wondering about? 15 and 18 I know had changes.
There needs to be a change on page 16.
Okay, hold on one second.
That's all.
Cool, thank you. Yep, and on page 16?
The second word.
Oh, thank you.
And just to double check, Dr. Carpenter, I should know this more than anybody here just about, but
And the word is required, by the way, for that. not
who's our
required.
bus company next year?
Cape Cod Collaborative.
Not Cape Destinations?
No.
Okay, that's another change on page
Okay,
16.
sure, yeah.
Joe, what page?
16.
Thank you.
I'm only focusing on one page.
Great, that you were able to read all those
And
pages.
in this one, they would contact, actually, the central office, they'd contact Tony London.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm raising my hand for myself, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I do. Page 21, I just wanted some clarification. Harwich Elementary School is an allergy-aware school and is not nut-free.
What did these things have to request?
So you are not nut-free, there are nut-free areas in the school.
There are nut-free areas and designated areas for students to be nut-free. So
Okay.
we have, in other words, a section in the cafeteria where students
Right.
can have peanut butter or nut butter or whatever, and then there's sections that are nut-free. But we
I
can't
think
say
it's
we're
just the way
nut-free
I think
school.
it's the way I read it, and I
Oh,
was like,
okay.
I just wanted,
It almost
I
is-
knew you had nut-free tables, but it almost
Yeah.
makes it
It's
be
almost like a double negative. but not
exactly, and
nut-free.
I was like, or someone else, is anyone else interpreting it the way I am? Because I was just like,
Yeah.
they're
'Cause in
allergy
the past,
aware
we
and
said-
not nut-free, and I'm like, ooh, that comes off a little.
I know Holly could definitely speak to that. Which
Yeah, okay.
That is the term
I
we
was-
use now is not nut-free, so.
Okay, that's fine, perfect,
Because in the past, we could have been nut-free, or schools could be,
right.
but we have a
And we have some
nut-free
classrooms
section.
that are nut-free.
Yeah, we,
Okay.
yes.
Perfect. Great, thank you, I'm done.
Any other
Joe?
questions?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment. Let's see, fourth grade student ambassadors. I really like that all fourth grade students have the opportunity. So I just wanted to pull that out and say how much I like that.
I'm so glad. We've enjoyed it too, and the students have had such pride and joy. Just to share one fun little takeaway, in February, the kids made beautiful valentines for two of our Harwich senior centers, and we walked them down to the Rosewood and delivered them, and the kids sang, and it was just really, really nice to be able to have those events happen in the community, and it gives them such a great sense of joy and bringing joy to others as well. So thank you, nice to hear that, we do enjoy it. And we're open to more themes if anyone has any more ideas, but those are some good ones.
Is
Thank
that
you.
happening at both elementary schools or just Harwich?
I don't know about Chatham. I don't know if they have a student ambassador or student council. I don't know.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And we try to put those things in the HES happenings as they occur so the community can see it as well. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Holly, I'll leave this right here for you.
Welcome, Holly.
Just stick this up here. You have your pages.
Hi, I'm Holly Tavano. I'm the school nurse at Harwich Elementary School, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Thank you. I will be super brief. I only have one section, but it does encompass about 5 pages. This is not new stuff. There are no new laws or policies that have changed this year in the state for elementary schools, but nursing across schools, we just felt as if we wanted to collaborate on a project to make everything cohesive and standardized. Some schools had different temperatures that would send a kid home. A lot of parents were confused about why their child may have gone home vomiting and why they needed to not be in school the next day. It just wasn't clear. So we wanted to make it easy to follow, fair for all. And specifically, I will say the only difference is when you go to page 29 about the AEDs. Harwich Elementary does have 2 now. We used to only have one in the front lobby, and now we have one in the gym as well. So please always look for those when you're there, because as we say, you may help save a life. And also on page 32, speaking to what you were saying, Jackie, about allergy aware. That's the catchphrase now. It's, we cannot, no one can guarantee a nut-free place anywhere, which is unfortunate for a lot of kids with life-threatening allergies. and we do absolutely everything we can to keep those kids safe, and we do a great job. But we wanted to be sure that we just put it out there that we do our hardest, and we, like Sharon was saying, we don't really keep the net kids separate. They actually, the kids who want to bring nets go to their section, and anyone who else wants to go with them may. But the kids, the large section, they can eat, safely with their friends. But that is the catchphrase, which is confusing. I think that's it. This was not just me. This was Cheryl Defoe, Carol Fiocco, Mary Beth Maloney, Sarah Sears, Amy Sullivan. We worked on this together to make this consistent across.
Sharon?
Question and comment. So, I'm noticing the health insurance section here, and so my question is not really about this, but in effect, how many kids might not have health insurance, or how many kids maybe would a school or Harwich Elementary School have to help get a primary? I do see that either primary care or somebody that would take care of them.
We work, I don't have those numbers. I can't.
No, but just a general idea.
I've looked at if it is filled in where it's supposed to be, I would say greater than 80%. That's just a guess, like thinking about when I needed to look who has what insurance. But we were able to disperse that information to any families that are having trouble finding ways to insure themselves. And also, we like to have physicals on file for every child. I like it every year. It's not required every year, but I'm like, give it to me, you have it. And if I'm finding that it's been a couple of years, or I know it's a new kid who's, just coming into the system, I personally reach out and make sure that I give them information to find a
It's
primary.
really in general, it's disturbing for me when people don't have health care, but much more so for children. And I'm recently become aware of, at Outer Cape in Harwich, they have a navigator in some of the different Outer Capes and other places who helps them with all kinds of things, like getting on health insurance, all kinds of resource information, like you mentioned, another resource in the packet. But
that's a great resource for us to know about too.
Yeah. Well, because of having people ask me about psychotherapy, adults mostly, I've had to send them. I can't spend all my time, doing that. So, and neither, I'm sure can you, but that's what their job is.
Yeah, that's great.
But and the comment is that this booklet for you and everybody else, Karen, who worked on this, for all the years I've been on the school committee, this is the easiest way to follow it. It's because you walk right through, you can see exactly what's going on, what's added, changed, anything. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tina?
Yeah, I have a question, but I don't think this is for you, Holly. I'm going to throw this maybe over to our superintendent. So Massachusetts doesn't require a physical for students, is that correct?
Correct.
And why is that? All right.
That was my
Maybe
question too,
another
and I think
question for
Holly's
another time.
Ready to go.
Sorry. No, it's just, I was very surprised moving from Virginia 7 years ago. I was very surprised by that, so I just throw it out to
But yet I
the.
feel like I'm asked every year to give a
Don't get us going on
health
backwards.
history
Okay,
form and an
okay.
immunization record. I'm requested to send it in. So where's the difference? Is there, we're not putting you on the spot if you don't have an answer.
It's a frustrating thing.
Right.
I want all my ducks in a row, and I want to give all the information that I can to all the families and make sure that they know how important it is to have child visits, no matter what, every year. And I think I just kind of work that in with my reaching out. Like it's phone calls, you know, it's not just emails or, you know, I have a list of kids who don't have them, and I work on it, and I push for it. A lot of the families are great at just handing it over, and they know that that's what's best for everyone, but right, I can't.
Right, well, so from a prevention standpoint, it's probably advisable that we are requesting health forums and having updated physicals on file for kids, you know, if they were to come in the office and report to the nurse's office with an issue, so you're keeping all of that up. And most importantly, the immunizations, communicable disease control, if you even, you know, if you have someone that's immune depressed in the school, someone's pregnant, something like that. But it's interesting that it's funny because it's saying on page 31 for immunizations and communicable disease control, eat that word, how the parents are responsible for keeping immunizations current and informing the school nurse when their child has received additional immunizations. And then it goes on to talk about monitoring infections and preventing transmission, and I know there was a big deal with chicken pox and, you know, religious rights to vaccinate your child with varicella, etc. Where does the school fall as far as having to have that child have that immunization? And if we aren't required to collect that information, how do we enforce and how do we keep track of the children who are immunized and who are not? And I feel like, in some sense, I've always been asked for a health form or an immunization record, and it comes from a good place because your nurse is being preventative, and we should be supplying that information if we have it. And then going at the families and helping support them when they don't have that, which leads to health insurance and all the other variables. But as far as keeping the other students in the schools safe,
We all keep a list of the children who would be at risk if there was an outbreak of a certain disease. And if that should occur, we would gather those children, and they would need to remain out of school for a certain amount of time.
And so that would include students who you don't have immunization records on.
It would have to be.
Okay. That clarifies it a little bit for me, thank you. Does that help, Tina?
Yeah.
That's interesting, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, good for you guys,
Yeah.
because it always made me feel like I had to have it, so.
Yeah.
Prevention's key here.
Just the other comment that I'll say, and this doesn't have to do with the elementary, but on the high school, and I think the middle school, but if you're an athlete, you
Middle
have
school
to
as well.
have that physical. So I just was very surprised 7 years ago.
And that has to do, I think, with, schools.
MIAA.
Yeah, MIAA rulings, yeah.
Right.
Which is separate, so.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to move forward from the handbook, and now we're moving on to Howard Elementary School, Safe Routes to Schools, Transportation Grant Update. In just a moment.
This is Mary's encore performance.
Right.
Thanks, Jim. I just wanted to acknowledge Sharon, who's the Harwich Elementary Assistant Principal, and Holly Tavano, our school nurse, both of which are just finishing their first year at our school and in our school district. Sharon came to us from Orleans Elementary in Nauset, and Holly, I often forget that she's just a second-year school nurse, having spent her first year in Dennis-Yarmouth, and I just respect their professionalism and so appreciate the positivity that they bring and the child focus, and thank you for all that you do. So tonight I'm going to update you on two very significant capital projects that are underway with Harwich Elementary in collaboration with the town of Harwich. The first is the Safe Routes to School Sidewalk Grant, and the second is the Harwich Community Playground at Harwich Elementary School. Safe Routes to School is a grant project that was brought to our attention back in December. Harwich Elementary was eligible to apply for this grant because of our involvement with Safe Routes to School through a program they have to encourage pedestrian and bicycle access to school facilities. We really don't have many students that walk to school. However, our focus has been on our sidewalk structure and its connectivity to Main Street in Harwich, our recreation facilities in Harwich, and the educational facilities within our reach, such as Brooks Free Library and the high school. So we work very closely with the Harwich Fire and Harwich Police Department on our crisis evacuation routes. And what we've discovered over the last year or so is that the sidewalk infrastructure just simply cannot handle the flow of people out of our building to the reunification sites. On any given day, we have almost 700 people at Harwich Elementary between students and staff. And when we're evacuating and doing these drills, we have 3 different exits that we primarily go out of. And as you can see from these pictures, it's certainly not ADA compliant. Quite often, we can only walk one abreast, and obviously the focus is on exiting and getting out of the areas as fast as we can. So we applied for this grant in collaboration with the town of Harwich, and were awarded it back in February. There were only 14 awards throughout the state, and Harwich Elementary was the only school on Cape Cod to receive a grant. There's approximately $15 million available. Our budget that we submitted was around $680,000. However, that dollar value can be flexible based upon the planning and design and engineering work that's being done now. We also are dovetailing this with a community development block grant sidewalk project that's happening more right down around Town Hall and around the library. So it will be a more comprehensive network of sidewalks. We had a meeting in just right before school got out with to scope out the project with the Mass DOT, Cape Cod Commission, the town of Harwich and Harwich Elementary School, and also did a walking tour of the about 1.3 miles of sidewalk that goes from, if you look at the blue outline here, the sidewalk project really is on one side of the road coming down Sisson Road, down South Street from Harwich Elementary, up Sisson Road, Forest, and down Main Street. The dotted blue there is a extension that we're looking at that does not currently have sidewalks, and the thought there is that it gets us off of Main Street and also provides pedestrian access into the Brooks Free Library facility there. And right where parallel hits Forest, there are intersection improvements that are being considered there, and to improve pedestrian safety. That's kind of a really funky intersection. It's more of a curve in the road, and also a pedestrian crossing on Main to get our students up Island Pond Road to the bike path. We have an estimated build start, if all goes well, with the project review committee with the Mass DOT in August. I guess in the world of public works projects, as estimated start build of 2022, it's considered quite expeditious, but that's the earliest we can get it underway. So we're following those timelines and doing everything we can do to make sure we're on the front end of that and on the front end of that $15 million budget for those 14 projects. The only concern that we learned of when we met in June was the thought that Mass DOT has around all of the sidewalks needing to be part of what they consider a complete street design, which is sidewalks on both sides with a bicycle route. And the feeling in the room at the time was that we will most likely seek a waiver for that, and that those have been granted in the past, and people seem to feel very positive about us being able to move forward with the sidewalks on one side of the street where they are existing, and it would be more of an upgrade and replacement project versus a new sidewalk with right-of-way issues, and so that's what we're hoping for, but we'll know more about that in August. Any questions on the Safe Routes to School project? Okay.
Very exciting.
It is. All right, Harwich Community Playground at Harwich Elementary School. This is our new logo. We have also changed the name of the project from the Harwich Playground to the Harwich Community Playground at Harwich Elementary School to reflect the scope of this project. Just to give you kind of a context, we're talking about all of the playing fields behind Harwich Elementary School and the Cultural Center. And if we zero in there, we have Castle in the Clouds, which is the existing playground down there in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm sorry, I don't have a pointer, otherwise I would. And up there by the R in elementary is the preschool playground. And we also just have some dirt and sand-based play areas along with the asphalt basketball court, which predates Castle in the Clouds. Castle in the Clouds celebrated its 25th birthday in May at Harwich Elementary, and so the basketball courts actually predate that play structure. We also have a second asphalt top for foursquare, hopscotch, and that kind of thing, and then the two little league fields. So we've changed the name to the Harwich Community Playground because it does encompass Castle in the Clouds, the preschool, the basketball courts, as well as the little league fields. The project timeline, we awarded the design contract to Development Serene out of Foxborough in March. And in April, they met with our playground committee, which is very extensive, and all of the stakeholders in that contiguous recreation space are represented. We have Monomoy basketball, the Little League, Town Rec Department with Eric Beebe, parents and the PTO, staff members, and they completed an existing condition survey. So we were able to meet with Develop Strain in June and look at a preliminary concept review. And based upon that meeting in April with the playground committee, there were certain focus areas that came out that were really important to the playground committee. First and foremost was that we acknowledge the Castle in the Clouds legacy and integrate that in some way into the design. The ADA compliance needs to be there, the play elements that the students are interested in and can engage our full developmental range of our students from preschool to 4th grade. And that we not just look at Castle of the Clouds, that we really take this opportunity to look at all of that property back there as one big contiguous opportunity. In July, we will be narrowing down the concept into more of a schematic design review, starting to look at actual play elements and begin the budget scoping for the entire project. We have, based on the input, the design currently has 3 bays of swings, potentially room for 2 under 8 soccer fields, revised basketball court, as well as I guess more innovative play elements that we're finding that kids are really interested in, such as a Gaga pit, which is kind of the newest and big craze in playgrounds. So we're looking, all this is a pretty aggressive time frame, looking at an October 2019 multi-agency application to the Community Preservation Act funds. We anticipate that application is going to come in from not only Harwich Elementary, but also the Town Rec Department and the HES parent-teacher organization, as well as, depending on how it's structured, potentially the Little League and the basketball as well. Are there any questions? Sharon?
You don't have a list of who's on this committee, do you?
I can tell you from memory, as best as I can. I don't have it here with my slide deck. I'm just thinking as our last
Maybe
meeting going around the
just
table.
Email it to me.
Sure,
That would be fine. I'm just,
And
it's exciting.
sorry, Tina Games is also on our committee as well. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
the police
Okay.
and fire.
I think it was in our previous
It was,
presentation.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had it in
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
I'll email it to you, Sharon.
Thank you, thank
It's,
you. It's very exciting.
Very exciting.
yeah. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments, anything other than excitement for the playground? Fantastic.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And next agenda item is the infant toddler preschool RFQ.
So, just a little bit of information. We mentioned at the last school committee meeting that we were going to be putting out a request for proposals for entities to partner with us to look at using available classroom space at Harwich Elementary and or Chatham Elementary for infant, toddler, and preschool supports that may provide options to families that currently don't exist, ideally looking for a partner who could help address that full day, full year need that families in the survey were saying is sort of most missing in our communities. The request for proposals has gone out. It is, we'll be having in the request for proposals, there's a required forum for any entity that is that's interested in providing a proposal to come hear from parents about what their wants are. So we'll be having a forum on childcare, sort of infant, toddler, preschool care at Harwich Elementary School, 6 p.m. on Tuesday, July 9th. The following Thursday, July 16th at 2 p.m., sealed bids are due from entities interested in partnering with us. I would like to enlist at least one school committee member to work with Katie and I and another sort of small committee of individuals to go through the proposals. I can't imagine that there'll be many, but if there are more than one, we need to go and vet the proposals because we would want to bring the recommended partner to our July 18th school committee meeting to award that partnership to them, and then that launches us into potentially a tight timeline with the partner, because we would need to get the rooms that they would be using, sort of up and ready to go, ideally for sort of early September. So so it's a lot to kind of get going. We've also had interestingly, parallel to all of this going on, we have had the receiver for Cape Cod Child Development, which had the Head Start grant, has reached out wanting to see if there was space that we might have in our schools to potentially have a Head Start preschool room. So I think that whoever the school committee member is that would be looking at these, we'd also like to engage with them in looking at the proposal that CDI has, that's the receiver, to see what they're proposing as a potential use of classroom space.
Great. Any questions? Sharon?
When you mentioned Head Start, so how many total rooms are we talking about?
Well, we would have, I believe, if we look at going into next year, there's the potential for 2 rooms at Chatham Elementary School max, and the potential for 2 rooms at Harwich Elementary School max. You know, and you know, so it's, I think that's if we were, you know, filling all the spaces that we potentially have. You know, so I think we just have to see, see who's interested. You know, we've, you know, if entities, our potential partners want to, you know, come see spaces, we've been, you know, happy to go walk them through the buildings and show them, you know, here are the spaces that we think would be ideal for us in terms of being able to still run the school program that we have. But you know, so it's you know, it's just looking at the, you know, the classroom spaces that we anticipate being available for next year. So at most 2 in each building.
Great, any other questions?
Volunteers?
How much time is this? How much time is it?
A couple hours tops.
Okay, I'll volunteer then.
I think
Joanne?
Joanne too. So if
And
you
Mary?
can,
Sure.
if you can just put on your calendars, I suspect we'd have a late afternoon meeting, slightly after 2 p.m., but we can be flexible with people's schedule on the 16th when those bids come in.
No, 11?
The sealed bids come in on July 16th.
Oh, sorry.
So that would be the day.
Yeah, so,
2 p.m.?
well, they come in at 2, so I think shortly after it could be 3, 4, but we can, 2's when you want to meet. As Isorio says, we're meeting at 2 on the 16th.
I don't think I asked for public comment.
I can't.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
they get opened at 2, and then we need to vet and decide and bring it back here on the 18th.
Great. Sounds exciting.
That would be it.
That would be it. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Moving on to subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports for tonight? Seeing none. Superintendent's report?
I think Melissa had mentioned in her report that, or in one of her reports, that the administrative team has been meeting. They've been lucky to be locked in a room with me for the last 4 days. But we've had a retreat really focused. On Monday, we were focused on our first strategic objective. Tuesday, the second, Wednesday, the third, and today, the fourth strategic objective, to really look at the strategic plan. And I think while the strategic plan gives a district direction, it also has the potential. I mean, it's a big document, and it's you want to make sure you can sort of distill it down so we go into opening day in late August of this year, and really kind of help share with the staff. Here's where we're going, and sort of here's the focus in each one of these areas. So so for us it was trying to distill that down, and we'll do a little presentation at our July 11th school committee meeting. That'll be sort of the summary of our 4 days work together. That would be it.
That would be it. Fantastic. And I did have the pleasure of joining them for about an hour on Tuesday. It was actually during a conference call, but it was really great to see all the admin team together, and just kind of a great, passionate group working together cohesively and having a good time, all with the same goals and motivation, and it just a special group to see together. I was kind of honored to be there for an hour and watch everybody in their working environment and having a good time and being productive. So it was very nice.
I would report out on one thing. So every day we try to start with a little team building icebreaker. We decided on Wednesday, the team building icebreaker would be learning how to play Gaga, because none of us had ever played before. So we enlisted a expert, a middle school expert, to come teach us the game of Gaga. So as all these children are showing up for summer camp at the Chatham Rec Center, all of their principals and their superintendent were in the Gaga pit, which I believe Ms. Isernio and Mr. Smith there were clearly Gaga professionals.
Fantastic.
We did play Lady Gaga
Oh.
at the same time.
Oh, okay. It's a lot of Gaga.
Gaga.
Well,
I
fantastic.
would have paid money to see that.
I know. I was just across the street. Okay, thank you, Dr. Carpenter, and I believe we just have a few votes required. However, the first one on action items is the SEIU contract ratification, and we did meet as an executive session with a brief presentation from Dr. Carpenter detailing the outcome, and we have unanimously approved the SEIU contract. And Dr. Carpenter, if you just want to do a quick report out on that.
Sure. The SEIU contract is our custodian group. They too had met prior to the school committee meeting and had voted to ratify the contract. We went into the contract negotiations with an analysis of the custodian contracts across the Cape. Our custodians were paid right at the Cape mean on their first year on the job. What we definitely noticed about the custodian contracts, how our district differed from other Cape districts, is that our contract had 17 steps before our custodians would be at top step. The other Cape contracts ranged between 5 years on the job and 10 years on the job to reach that top step. What we came to a agreement on is to restructure the grid, so to speak, so that we reduce the number of steps in our contract, so that there'd be 10 steps in our contract with 4% between each step, and the custodians agreed to a 1% COLA per year for the next 3 years on this new grid. And our lead custodians have 3 steps, had 3 steps in their contract. There were 3% between those 3 steps, and our leads would be getting a 2% COLA for the next 3 years. So our leads, there's 1 lead custodian for each one of those buildings. We really feel that reducing the number of steps actually will help us hopefully abate some of the turnover that we've seen in our custodians in their earlier years on the job. And I think we've got some custodians that are, have been here just 2, 3, 4 years, who I see as being our lead custodians down the line, and we want to see those young men and women stick here, stick with us as they get to know their building, rather than heading off to some other venue to work.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next action item.
Need to approve it.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, we approved it in executive session, but we need to approve it here. Is there a motion to approve the SEIU contract?
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that part. At our last meeting, we had a representative from the Creative Writing Club, as well as Lisa Doyle, here to present the Sanskrit Creative Writing Club trip to New York City travel request. Is there a motion to approve the travel request for the Creative Writing Club to New York City?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Motion carries. Next would be the second reading of the job description, administrative assistant, to the Director of Student Services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous, motion carries. Second reading, file IJNDC Technology Acceptable Use Policy. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? Hearing none, motion carries. And then we have the declaration of surplus items, which is a special list tonight. But I'm gonna put one of my professionals on the task. Ms. Scott, would you like to take that one?
I'm in. I move to approve as surplus from Monomoy Regional High School large outdoor storage, 1 box of weights, 1 weight rack, 1 squat rack, 1
Hanging.
clothes rack? Hanging clothes rack, thank you. 2 ping pong tables. What? 3 track mats. And from, no one else from the high school. From Howard Elementary, 13 CRT displays, 13 desktop computers, 3 network switches, 1 network switch, 3 laptops, 3 small laptops, 1 iPad tablet, 2 desktop computers, 13 keyboards and mice, 2 desktop computers, 1 network switch, 2 battery apps, 1 printer scanner, 25 keyboards, 40 ink cartridges, and 1 desktop. From the middle school, 12 projector and mountings, 4 projector and mounting, 16 interactive whiteboards, 1 projector and mounting, 2 more projector and mountings, and 3 interactive whiteboard and mountings. This is a big one. From the Sale classroom, 4 pre-algebra books, 7 algebra 1 books, 12 basic math books, because I can add basic math, 1 algebra binder, 1 passport to algebra, 4 mathematics, 3 mathematics with business apps, 10 math workbooks, 8 science explorer CDs, 32 CDs, 6 biology texts, another biology teacher edition, 4 some Theron's biology, 2 Prentice Hall biology, 2 biology workbooks, 3 physical science, 5 Theron's health, 7 Theron's health, 1 of which is a teacher. Holy shnikes. Teacher edition. 8 Theron's general science, 2 general science, 1 general science, 1 earth science, 1 teaching resource, 1 science explorer, 5 sharpen up, 1 world geography and cultures, 3 or possibly 6 world histories, 3 world histories, 5 America stories, 8 world history, 11 basic math, another 4 basic math, which would total 15
Workbooks?
basic math, 20 math workbooks, 3 America books, 4 world history and U, 1 world geography, 1 biology, 1 general science, 1 intro to life science, 3 United States history, 3 basic math, 1 geometry, 1 basic English, 4 American folklore and legends, 1 mathematics, 1 world history, 1 intervention teacher's guide, 2 spelling vocabulary, but wait, there's more. 1 closer reading, an intervention teacher guide, a beginning dictionary, 10 workbooks, and finally from Chatham Elementary School, 12 projectors and 12 interactive whiteboards.
And a partridge and a...
I will second.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And just to emphasize, the books are 20 to 30 years old. The technology is either not working, most of those computers aren't working, or they just are, it's obsolete, sort of instructional technology.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
No, we have to say yes, we vote on that first. I'm not rereading all of that
Oh, we
again.
did. Oh, I did it.
We didn't say aye.
We did.
She moved, I
Aye.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And I move to adjourn. Because I
And I'll
got to do
second.
all that.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good night. You know, it's number two. It's number two.
What you just